Congratulations on getting a new customer, but you're taking that customer from another MSP. It could be kind of scary. There's things that you may want to expect, you may be expecting, you might not even be sure what to expect. In this video, I'm going to be breaking down what realistic expectations you can have, how to build trust with that client, and overall, how to make a smooth transition so that way a client leaves happy, you don't muddy the waters, and that existing MSP that is now gone doesn't try to sabotage your operation. How are you doing? My name is Harrison Barron from growth-generators.com. We help MSPs grow, whether it's sales training, marketing training, or business operations. Happy St. Patrick's Day. This is being recorded on St. Patrick's Day, so I hope everyone has a great day because everyone is a little Irish on St. Patrick's Day. But before we get into today's video, if you could head over to growth-generators.com and just check out some of our stuff. We have our programs, we have the About section, services, resources. And hey, if you want to go check out our podcast on both Apple and Spotify, give it a review. I would truly, truly appreciate it. We're constantly looking to get more reviews. You have to listen to a couple episodes. I know, I'm sure you're probably tired of me, and I apologize. But if you think I have earned, and we have earned, the team here, because it's not just a me effort, I would truly appreciate a 5-star review. So let's get into taking this client from another MSP, right? The first thing you have to do is you want to make sure you review the existing client's existing contract. Truly, they might have given you the John Hancock on your contract, but that doesn't mean it immediately terminates the existing contract. So first things that we want to do is we want to confirm the termination date and just meet any notice requirements. Sometimes MSPs will have a 30, 60, 90-day notice. Whatever it is, it doesn't matter, but you want to make sure that you have hey, everything's done on this date. Now, it is up to you if you want to wait that long or not. You could start pulling things off of there, but they end support on that day. You also want to make sure that you read over that contract or have the client read over that contract to make sure that there's not any hidden fees. There are early termination fees in some regards. I don't personally agree with them, but hey, it's my job to tell you what you might run into. Somebody might have an early termination fee. I've seen it range from 1 month to half month to just a couple $100. Whatever it is, as far as fees go, just make sure that the customer is aware of them, because they might say, hey, I might have to finish out my contract in 3, 6, 9 months, and then we can start our contract. And you might have to be aware of that, right? And you also want to make sure that you understand data ownership and transfer obligations. Some MSPs may not hand everything over without a fight. And honestly, I don't want you to have to put on the boxing gloves. That customer should know who owns the data, if they have the data, the passwords, all of that kind of stuff. Now, we in the MSP world know that the less information the customer has, the better, because they could give out the wrong passwords, they can give out the wrong access to people, and it could really make our jobs a billion times easier, with an emphasis on the B. I've been in the trenches of the muddy waters, and they are not great, let me tell you. So, what can you actually expect if you happen to have an MSP that is, a good MSP and they're not, horrible people? What can you expect? Now, this truly depends on how people run their MSP businesses. In a perfect world, you're going to get the entire list that I've accumulated here, but in a not so perfect world, you may or may not get some or any of these, or maybe you might just get passwords, right? Network diagram is huge. If you can get a network diagram, just knowing, yes, we could trace everything out, but sometimes they might be putting in low voltage cables or anything like that would just make our lives easier. On top of that, any network documentation for VLANs, IP addresses, firewall rules, all of those things are going to help. Also keep in mind too, and you might want to check the contract, if they're leasing hardware or they don't own the rights to their hardware, that MSP might be pulling all that stuff out, and you have to be prepared to deploy that stuff pretty quickly if it's in your contract, or sell it to them, however you want to handle that one. Admin credentials is another one, and access. Depending on who owns that hardware, they should be giving you admin credentials, firewall, switches, servers, Microsoft 365 stuff, backup portals, anything like that, security tools. They should be giving you admin credentials across the board. Now, in the worst case scenarios, you might not get any of these things. Like I said, you might have to brute force or force reset or however you end up taking it over, but assume You could always go into it assuming that it's a hostile environment and that person's not going to give you anything. Doesn't mean that they're not going to, but it's probably better to operate under the assumption that the other MSP isn't going to give you anything. Also, asset inventory is huge. Workstations, servers, software licensing. You're going to get a lot of these things from your RMM tool, but maybe there is I've seen it, a closet, or it's usually a part of the server room, and there's just boxes from floor to the ceiling of just new computers, monitors, keyboards, whatever it is, all in there. Sometimes it's good to have an asset inventory. Not everyone keeps an accurate one, but if they give it to you, hey, that's a nice win. If they don't give it to you, you got to go in there and track everything down. Also, any backup details, where's the backup being stored, any locations, retention policies, encryption keys if they exist. Those are things that are important. More often than not, you're going to take your own backups, but God forbid if you don't get a chance to take a full backup and something does happen, you probably want to have access to that information as well. Any vendor contracts and licensing that they might have, if they went directly through Microsoft, security tools, VoIP contracts, whatever is existing out there, it's probably a good time for the existing MSP to give that over to you. And if the existing MSP doesn't give it over to you, you probably want to get that from the customer directly. And last but not least, any security documentation, past incidents, compliancy reports are really important. And then any SOC audits, if any SOC audits have actually happened there. And last but not least, if they are willing, and this is a rare one, I have not seen it yet, but I've heard of it actually happening, is they pass over the standard operating procedures. They've trained the client to say, hey, this is what we do, this is how we do it, existing IT policies and automations and scripts. That could help you. Not one I would prey on. You're probably going to come in there and deploy your own SOPs right off the bat. So don't stress on that one. It would be nice. Hey, this is the policy that we have for IT. Maybe it's something you want to keep. Maybe it's something that you don't want to keep. But it's better to have a choice than not, right? So now that we've kind of covered what you could actually get, you're probably going to run into some roadblocks. Now, once again, an MSP having all of those things, rare, but they do exist. There's plenty of them that exist. Plenty of you guys doing the good work out there and fighting the good fight. But there's a lot of MSPs that don't. And typically, if you're taking a client, they're probably not the best MSP. Truly, right? So here are some common issues that you're going to run into, but also how to actually handle them. Many times the outgoing MSP delays and just delays and delays or refuses to provide documentation. If that's something that actually happens, it's probably important to just reach out to the customer and say, hey, so and so is not reaching out to us. You paid your last bill, right? Yes, we paid the last bill. I've quite literally been in this. Okay. If they don't respond in 24, 48, 72 hours, whatever it is, or the next week, we're just going to do a forced takeover. We're going to just take everything of theirs out and we're going to put all of our own stuff in. It happens, right? But I have seen the delay and the delay and the delay and the delay. I don't truly understand why. It doesn't make anybody feel better or happier. It just creates more stress and friction that didn't need to actually exist, right? Also, missing or incorrect credentials. Worse is the MFA is locked, and now you need to get into that. Hopefully, that's not the case, in which case, good luck. Truly, I mean, it's just going to be about getting into certain things. Sometimes, depending on if it's an MFA with a company, you might be able to get it unlocked from that company if proving with the contracts and whatnot. I've seen vendors open things up on very rare occasions. Also, vendor lock-in issues is another thing. You might be locked into a vendor, right? The licensing owned by an MSP and not the client. If they want to be really toxic about the takeover, something to be aware of. And a lot of these are going to be a per situation navigation, but just know that it can actually happen. And that one is very much going to be, where are the licenses actually upkept? You may need to take a ride over to that MSP and ask nicely for the stuff. Doesn't actually hurt to just show up there with donuts and be the better person, right? You might deal with lack of network documentation. That's not terribly hard. You're going to just have to rebuild it. And then clients not realizing that what they don't have, right? If you don't know what you don't know. And in many cases, the client doesn't know what they don't know. So they just assume, hey, sign the contract, put your little agent thing on there and everything's good. No, that's not how that happens. In a perfect world, it'd be great, but that's not how that happens, right? So We have to make sure that we, right, are super, super proactive when it comes to these things. And if you're struggling, you're like, Harrison, I don't want to mess anything up. I do have a full free onboarding guide. It's somewhere in here and we can scroll through and look, but there's a there it is, free onboarding checklist. Everything you need to know to make sure your onboarding is done correctly. Feel free to go download it. I will put it as the top link down below. But if you want to grab that, just so you don't mess anything up, it's totally free. It's super in depth. Use it, tweak it, modify it, but it's a really good starting point. And by the way, if you're enjoying this kind of content, please hit that like button, subscribe button, notification bell, because it does help me know what content to make for you guys. So now that we've talked about the onboarding, we've covered quite a bit here. Let's talk about the steps that you can follow, right? Because the nuggets are always at the end. And there is a series of steps that you could follow that kind of takes a lot of the pressure off of you, knowing that things are done. Obviously, go get the onboarding checklist. It's going to be way more thorough than this video, but you want to start documentation immediately. As soon as you can, start documenting logins, network maps, SOPs, anything like that. Document, document, document. You guys are probably sick of me saying it, but if you don't have one already, just use Applaud. You can just do voice to text and or record it as you're doing things and then write up the documentation later. If you're into that kind of stuff, I'm a big fan of making my life easier. Whether or not you get one, I don't particularly care, but you're going to want to document. Fire up a Hoodoo account, an IT Glue account, and just start putting information in. Because if it's a toxic takeover, more documentation is going to be more better. And especially if it's a toxic takeover, documenting is even more important. God forbid this goes to court or anything like that. You want to have every single detail as clean and thorough and well organized as possible. Next thing you're going to want to do is perform a security audit. Change admin passwords right off the bat. Check for hidden accounts. Anything that you think could be a violation of security, go through, change it, remove it, switch it, modify it, bop it. I'm just kidding for all of you that know, but you have to, right? Security is really, really important. The last thing we want is an old provider that just got fired, who's probably not going to be too happy about it, to have access to the system. That is a 0 out of 10. Nobody wants to deal with that. Also, setting up some multi-factor authentication, if you have that, and that's the kind of MSP that you run, and transferring that information, right? Ensure your accounts are actually linked to the clients and not the old MSP. I know that's kind of dumb, but I don't want you to mess this up. I've spent a lot of time making this video and putting this together. I actually spent like most of my weekend coming up with this video, and starting an MSP was the short, took me less time to do than this one. So after we do all of these things, get a backup. We now have documentation done correctly. We've done a security audit. We've removed as much possible stuff as we can and that we see. We set up, account transfers and MFA if we need to do that, but we need a backup. We need a clean, full backup. And that is day 0, essentially, because that old provider may, as soon as their contract is up, gone. Unless it specifically states, 180-day retention, 6-month, whatever the retention actually is. We can't assume that we're going to get that. Even if something bad happens, it's probably a safe assumption that they're not going to give you the data anyway. So you want to get that backup with clean, good data as soon as you possibly can. And then just set up good communication. Any changes that are happening, setting up a SPOC, a single point of contact, is always going to be a good thing. But you want to make sure that you can support the new client with the new contract that they're actually getting. And over the rest of the time, you're going to do a gradual transition. While all of this is going to be done fairly quickly, there's going to be things that you receive. You want to try to make it a gradual transition. On day 1 or the first week, you're going to be hitting it really, really hard. And I always tell new clients, hey, we're taking over. It's going to get a little messy, and I apologize. There's no way I could make this better for you. Trust me, I don't want to do this, but so and so XYZ client or past MSP is really not making it fun for us. We're going to operate as much as we can in the off hours to not disrupt you guys, but we're going to have to do a lot of stuff that I didn't really plan on doing. And that's okay, right? The client knows they're making a big, big, big decision. They're handing over the keys to the castle. It shouldn't be considered a light handoff by any stretch of the imagination. Once again, that client pays you monthly recurring revenue. They also make their money from their business that pays for their kids' college, their car, their mortgage, all of the good, maybe a vacation home, all of the things that they know and love in life. So keep that in mind. This is a huge decision that they're actually making. So you want to set yourself up for success. But how do we set your MSP up for success? Once again, go get the onboarding guide. It's free. Makes no I don't see why you wouldn't want to get an onboarding guide and just tweak and modify it. But if you're into that kind of thing, you might want to encourage your clients to get potentially some of their own licensing, or you keep it all under one roof. Try to avoid the going back and forth. Personally, sometimes they're going to have licensing. Depending on where it is, it might be a pain in the butt to get it under your umbrella. You guys are smarter than me with the technology. I would highly recommend that. Start documenting. The last thing you want to have happen is documents to go MIA. Hoodoo, IT Glue are going to be your best things to just document, document, document. The moment you can possibly document, the better. And then take everything you've learned from this video and make a checklist that surpasses this video, truly. Because more often than not, if you're a growing MSP, you're probably going to be taking clients from somebody else almost always, right? You're going to change things based on your processes and procedures, write them down, document it, create your own checklist to make sure that there's less surprises down the road. And if things don't go right, what do we actually have to do? How do we actually get involved with any of this? Because truly, it could be either a really great experience for that client. They could come right over, makes it super simple. Or it could be a really rough experience and that customer just feels like they're being pulled in both directions. We want to make sure that that customer doesn't feel like they're getting yanked around. They're coming to us as a source of truth, as a source of helpfulness for them, and an asset to their business. Don't make them feel like they made the wrong decision. They will fight tooth and nail to get out of that contract. They're already not happy. They know that there's going to be some bad stuff that currently happens, especially if their old provider stinks. Make it as smooth and feel good transition that they can possibly have. You'll lock that customer in for life. All right. So I hope this video helps. I hope you learned something. If you did, like button, subscribe button, notification bell. Love the heck out of you guys. That's it. That's all I got for you today. I'll see you guys on the next one. Everyone's Irish on St. Patrick's Day. I'm not even Irish. I just love St. Patrick's Day. Love you guys, and I'll see you guys on the next one.